kind of looked at all the instances of the word throughout the novel and grouped the times that it was used in the beginning of the novel, the middle of the novel, and the end of the novel into different categories.
Right, so in the first 3 chapters, promise comes up 4 times. I did the first 3, Matt did the 4th. So the first time is on page 2, right out of the gates. Some heightened sensitivity to the promises of life. Nick is referring to Gatsby. Promises refer to like gifts and opportunities of life. The next instance is on page 9. There was an excitement in her voice that men who would care for her found difficult to forget. A singing compulsion, a whisper, listen, a promise that she had done gay, exciting things a while since. This time, promise is like a hint, an intrigues the people to create a past for Daisy that they're not sure about. And then on page 42 in chapter 3, she held my hand impersonally, Jordan this is, as a promise that she'd take care of me in a minute. And in this case, promise is like an insincere guarantee. So I connected those 3 instances to all having a sense of uncertainty.
And then in the middle, from chapters 3 to 6, I found that promise really represented like dreams and aspirations. And my first quote is, the city seen from the Queensboro Bridge is always the city seen for the first time, in its first wild promise of all the mystery and the beauty in the world. And that's when Gatsby and Nick are headed into the city together. And it kind of just represents like the American dream and like immigrants like seeing New York City for the first time and all that it represents, and like all the dreams and fantasies wrapped up with America. And it's kind of correlates to all the dreams, like projections that Gatsby's put on Daisy in a way, kind of. And then the second quote is on page 99. It's, for a while these reveries provided an outlet for his imagination. They were a satisfactory hint of the unreality of reality, a promise that the rock of the world was founded securely on a fairy's wing. And this quote just kind of represents like the unpredictability of promise, like of dreaming, like kind of, and like how Gatsby wrapped his whole life in just chasing Daisy and his whole fantasy world he built up. And like by saying securely on a fairy's wing, it's like saying like it can collapse at any second and you never know what's gonna happen. And it's like kind of like he's building such a big like a city on like a very unsolid base kind of. And then my last quote is on page 51, and it said it's just at the party, and it said the wimp and resorted to flank attacks. At intervals she appeared suddenly at his side like an angry diamond and hissed "you promised" into his ear. And in that instance, promise is kind of like, with all things at Gatsby's party, promise is like, it's kind of superficial in a way, because she kind of says, you like, the instance is that the man is with another woman, and she says like, you promised like to be with me. So it's kind of like superficial in that like, it's just, they're kind of fillers. The words that he said were fillers, and sometimes the word promise can be used as something like the opposite of what the word really means in the context. So in the middle, to paraphrase it, promise really means like the aspirations and dreams that people have, and how unpredictable they can be, and how like based on nothing.
Towards the end of the book, a lot of instances where promise was used to talk about broken promises and promises that weren't kept. So in chapter 8, page 150, the afternoon had made them tranquil for a while, as if to give them a deep memory for the long parting the next day promised. So this is Gatsby and Daisy before Gatsby goes off to the war, and he hasn't known Daisy for too long, but he's in love with her, and he imagines that she is promising to never love somebody else and to wait for him. And also Daisy kind of represents promises about the future for Gatsby, because he thinks that if he's going to be with her, his future is going to be secure. So, but she doesn't wait for him, and that promise is broken. She goes off and marries Tom. And also, the long parting ends up being very long because they never get together again. Then in chapter 8, this is a long quote. It's not exactly about broken promises, it's about promises that are kept. By 6 o'clock, Kalos was worn out and grateful for the sound of a car stopping outside. It was one of the watchers of the night before who had promised to come back, etc. And this is a guy who's waiting with George Wilson,
Yeah, yeah.
5 minutes.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Just summarizing. But,
okay.
yeah.
So, people in the Valley of Ashes seem to keep their promises more than people in East Egg especially, because they're supporting Mr. Wilson after Myrtle dies, and they're keeping their promises to come back and sit with him, whereas Tom and Daisy and even Gatsby sometimes just really don't keep their promises to each other, and they're careless about them. Should I do the last one?
No.
That's
Yeah.
okay,
All right.
That's great. Thank